Have you ever really stopped to think about the water you drink? I mean, where has it been? The answer is pretty much everywhere. It's been on this incredible journey, an epic cycle that's been repeating for millions of years. So today, let's follow a single drop of water on its amazing adventure. Come on, let's dive in.
You know, when we look at our home from space, it's just this breathtaking swirl of blue and white. And that view tells you everything you need to know about how much water defines our world. The blue, well, that's obviously the vastness of our oceans. But the white, that's water too, just in the form of clouds. It is literally everywhere.
So, just how much water are we talking about? A staggering 70%. That's almost 3/4 of our entire planet's surface covered in the stuff. This is exactly why we call it the blue planet. Water isn't just on Earth. In a lot of ways, it is Earth. But okay, here's where the story gets really interesting. We are surrounded by all this water, but almost none of it is actually usable for us. A whopping 97% of it is salt water, locked away in our oceans. That leaves just a tiny, precious 3% as the freshwater that all life on land, including us, depends on. And that right there, that's the great paradox of our water world. We are floating through space on a planet that is just drenched in water. And yet the fresh, drinkable kind we need is unbelievably scarce. It's a super crucial detail in the story of life itself. You know, part of what makes water so special is just how versatile it is. It's the only substance here on Earth that you can find naturally in all three states. We see it as solid ice in glaciers, as a liquid in our oceans and rivers, and as an invisible gas, we call it water vapor, in the very air we're breathing right now. Okay, so let's get our water molecule's big journey started. How does it get from the surface of the Earth, say from a puddle or an ocean wave, all the way up into the atmosphere? Well, it's time for the Great Escape. The main engine for this escape is a process we call evaporation. It's all powered by the sun's energy. Basically, liquid water molecules get so warmed up and energized that they break free from the surface and just rise up into the air as that invisible gas water vapor. And you actually see evaporation in action all the time, even if you can't see the vapor itself. Ever wonder how wet laundry just gets dry on a clothesline? Yep, that's evaporation. Or that cloud of steam you see from a boiling kettle. That's actually the opposite. It's invisible water vapor cooling down and turning back into tiny visible droplets right before your eyes. But the sun isn't just heating up oceans and lakes. Plants are a huge and honestly often overlooked part of this whole process. So while evaporation happens from open water, there's another thing called transpiration, which is water vapor being released directly from plants. You can kind of think of it as plants breathing out water. It's this incredible silent process happening all around us. Plants draw water up from the soil through their roots, and then they release it as vapor through thousands of tiny little pores on their leaves called stomata. This is a massive contributor to the moisture in our atmosphere, and it's happening all the time. Now there's one more, slightly more unusual way for water to make its escape. It's called sublimation. This is where water performs a neat little magic trick, going straight from a solid, like ice or snow, directly into a gas, completely skipping that liquid melting stage. And if you want to see this for yourself, you probably already have, in your own freezer. Have you ever noticed how ice cubes seem to shrink if they've been in there for a while? That's not melting, folks. That's sublimation. The solid ice is slowly turning right into water vapor, even in the freezing cold. How cool is that? All right, so our water molecule has escaped. It's now floating high up in the atmosphere. So what's next? Well, it's time to find some friends and build a cloud. So, as this warm, moist air rises higher and higher, it starts to cool down. And that change in temperature triggers the next big transformation. The invisible water vapor changes back into tiny liquid droplets. This process, called condensation, is basically the exact opposite of evaporation. And here's a really amazing detail. These droplets can't just form out of thin air. They need a tiny little anchor to cling to, like a microscopic particle of dust or salt or even pollen floating up there. Billions of these droplets gather around these little particles, and poof, suddenly that invisible gas becomes a visible cloud. So, our water droplet has joined a cloud, and it's floating up there with billions of others. But it can't just hang out up there forever. Eventually, gravity always wins. It's time for the great return back down to Earth. As more and more of these droplets clump together, they get too heavy for the air to hold them up, and so they fall.
We call this precipitation, and it can show up in a lot of different forms, all depending on the temperature. Could be rain, snow, sleet, or even hail. And sometimes this process is just breathtakingly beautiful. I mean, if the temperature inside the cloud is below freezing, that water vapor can form these intricate ice crystals instead of liquid drops. Every single one is unique. They bond together, they get heavier, and then they eventually fall as delicate flakes of snow. So our droplet has made it back down to Earth. This final stage of its journey is what we call collection. But as you're about to see, every end in the water cycle is also a brand new beginning. So, what happens now? Well, a lot of that precipitation falls directly back into oceans, lakes, and rivers. Water that lands on the ground might flow over the surface as what we call runoff, trickling down hillsides and into streams. Or it might soak deep into the earth and become what we call groundwater. So there you have it. That's the whole epic journey, broken down into 4 main acts. It starts with evaporation, the great escape into the air. Then comes condensation, when it all gathers in the sky to form clouds. Next up is precipitation, the long fall back to Earth. And finally, collection, where our little water droplet waits to start the entire adventure all over again. It's really all one beautiful, continuous loop. From the ocean to the plants, up into the sky, and back down to the land. It is a perfect, closed system. And think about that. No new water is ever created or destroyed. It just changes its form and its location. This never-ending cycle is what sustains all life on our planet. And this brings us to one last kind of mind-blowing thought to leave you with. The water on Earth today is the very same water that's been here for millions, even billions of years. It's been recycled endlessly. So, the water in your glass right now could have once rained down on dinosaurs, or maybe it was part of a huge glacier at the South Pole. What do you think its story might be?